What's up, guys? Welcome to Bro Beats. Today I'm going to be showing you guys one thing you can do to make your melodies a lot better. If you guys haven't subbed already, I'll turn posts on. I should do so because it does help a lot. Let's hop right into it. So we have a slower BPM today. All right, and we can just go ahead and grab in a scale. I'll just grab in, the minor. Let's just use the A sharp minor. Okay. So first thing we need to do is actually make a melody. So I'm gonna explain what you need in order for this to work, because if you don't have enough notes, this will not necessarily work in your favor. It'll work, but it won't sound good. All right, so let's go ahead and start making the melody. All right, so let's go ahead and get into our melody, and this is the piano that I'm using. Okay, so I want to take my time with this because we're going to 100% completely focus on the melody in this video. So I want everyone to know the exact steps you need and things that you need in order for this to work. So first, we just need a bass line to start so we can have a chord progression. So if you don't know how to start a chord progression or just a bass line, you just need one chord, right, to start. So where are we in? A sharp. So if you just make the first chord of your scale that you're in, you can use this top note and pull it down, right? And then you can delete this note, and this will give you a start, right? And then if you want to, you can kind of do something like that. You can kind of construct this however you want, but this can be our bass line to start off. Right, a decent little bass line. So that is the bass line. Now let's move on to add in a little bit more notes for our chords. Okay, so now we're just gonna go ahead and make our chords, but first, I'm just gonna make a lower octave part of this bass, right? Just to give it some depth, make it a little bit more full. All right, so up here, this is pretty simple. You can be as creative as you want on this part. So basically we can just kind of make our chord, and then what you can do is kind of play around with some of these notes. So we can take this mid note and pull it up. As a matter of fact, we can just copy this up and then delete this. And we got some pretty full chords, right? And we could do this for every single one. So we can make a chord, right? Pull this up an octave, delete one. Over here, we could do the same thing. And then delete one. And then I'm gonna just delete this and just copy it over. All right, and then if you want variation, you can just add other notes. Now, if you look from here, right, and in my last video, I went over this, right? You can basically make a chord backwards from any of these notes to kind of keep it in harmony. If you're not sure what notes to use, right? So you can skip that note, place this one here. You can reinsert some of these notes like that just to make it different. All right, so those are the chords, and now let's move on to the next part. All right, so now what we need to do is just add some support notes or just connecting notes. The better term would be connecting notes, just because it makes the most sense to what we're doing. And basically what we're going to be doing is connecting notes together. So if we want to connect this and this, you would just shrink this down, and then you could, start to add a melody. But you don't want to go too crazy on this part, because you don't want this to because we still have to add our top melody, right? You don't want this to kind of take over, right? You just want it to be very subtle. Now this would be doing too much, but I'm just trying to explain to you how these work. All right, so let's take this away. So we could go from here to here, we can go from here to here, here to here, it doesn't matter, right? So let's take a longer approach just so we can kind of get practice with it. So let's shrink this down, let's kind of play. So I'm feeling somewhere in here, and usually I would like to start these on the second half, right? So bar 3 and 4, just because this part would kind of give the melody a little bit of rest, so it's not playing crazy all the time. But you can kind of construct it how you want. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw in one of these little notes, and then from here we can create a chord. And you see how all this stuff I'm showing you is kind of tying together. From here we can create a chord backwards to get our next note. And let's maybe let this linger out a bit. And then right here, Let's actually move this back. And these are the notes we have so far. And then from here, let's create a chord backwards again. You can see this is a major chord right here. So it's all kind of going together. And then let's offset this like that. Make that linger. All right. So I'm gonna highlight them and play them. So these are our notes right here. All right, so the last thing we need to do to set this up is just make a top melody. All right, so now let's go ahead and make our top melody. All right, now if you have this and you followed every step, this part should be extremely easy because all you have to do is just be a little creative. And I'm gonna try to break it up into 2 parts just so people aren't lost if this is their first time seeing anything like this. So if you don't know where to start, right, maybe you're like, man, I don't know what note sounds best, right? What I like to do is take the middle note of the first chord, right? So the middle note of this chord, and remember I just pulled this up an octave. And then what I like to do is start with that. Now the reason for that is because you get the best of both worlds, because it's in the middle. So you can go down and you can go up without consequences. Now, why I don't use this note, the third note, is because if you pull it up an octave to start, you can see how high it is, right? And that's a huge range jump. That does not mean you can't do that. I just personally think that's a little too high sometimes, especially depending on the key that you use for your scale. That'll kind of jump up here to the 8s. But that's just kind of a preference thing. So I'm gonna start here, right? So what we want to do, and I'm gonna try to break this up, is just put some linger notes. Now, linger notes are just notes to help you spark an idea. That's all it is. So if you just want to like, and basically you want to make these super basic. You don't want to try to do something super complex. So you can literally just do something like this, right? And this is going to kind of give you ideas. It's like sampling almost, like how when you hear a sample and you're like, ooh, maybe I should add this or that, right? It's just like the simplest version of that. So I'm going to do a flam here, something super basic. And then let's go ahead and just copy these over. All right. Right, and it's easier to come up with the idea off of this rather than just hearing this. Right, it's kind of blank. You don't really know where to go. So those are the linger notes, and now we can kind of go into the next part into adding other notes to this. All right, so now this is where we kind of make our melody. So from these notes, you should get an idea of where to go. Now, if you're not sure, I'm gonna show you. So you can take any of these notes, and it doesn't really matter what notes you have. So we can take this C sharp and we can make a chord, like act like we're making a chord out of it. So like this, right? Now you can do a lot with this. You can pull this down an octave and use this as a note, because if you look from this note, if we pull this down, this all comes together as a minor chord. Okay, so I'm gonna delete those. So we can use that, what was that, the F sharp? The F, the F. So we can do something like this. You can see this is the chord that we use, the G, right? And this is a minor chord as well. Right, you can just have fun with this part. You don't got to think too much about it. Just have fun. So we can copy these notes over. Maybe just add some other notes. And then over here, you can add variation. You don't have to start and do the same thing. We can maybe start here. Same thing, go up, do something like that. Let's copy it over just so it's consistent. And then actually, let's do something like that. Let's see. Okay, and then I'm gonna just copy this over right here and then use the same note. Actually, here we can go down. So we can go down, basically create a chord backwards. So you can see how all of this is coming together. Right, this is a major chord, a C sharp major, right? And let's just use this note. All right, so this is the entire melody we made, and let's play it all the way through. All right, so that is it for the melody. Now I'm gonna go ahead and show you the trick you need. All right, so now I'm gonna be showing you the tool, which is the strum tool. So we're not gonna be using this traditionally. We're gonna use it in a different way. So with the strum tool, if we hold Alt S, you'll see it'll strum everything equally, right? And we don't want that because that sounds super robotic if everything is strummed equally, right? So let's revert. So what you want to do is only on your chords here. We don't want to touch the top melody at all or the bass notes. Only on your chords. What you want to do is pick one note or at least one note within these chords, right? So you can pick two if you want, but at least one note to keep in the same spot. So we can kind of just do this line just to be consistent. And we can do something like that. And now what you want to do is hold shift, and if you have a mouse, you want to scroll, and you can just do one, just tick it over once, or if you want, you can hold Alt and click and drag, right? And the reason for this is because if you see, it's offset, and the strum tool will only strum things that are completely on the grid. So now when we hold Alt S and strum it, it'll have a lot more dynamic strum, and it'll keep our rhythm because this note is still playing where we wanted it to, right? And I'm gonna turn this end off. So what you need to pay attention to real quick is when you do this, you want to make sure these notes are completely on the grid like I have. And you can just copy these settings. So accept, and let's play it real quick. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you, and I just copied the original over here for comparison, this one. And you could use both, and then you can see how much more dynamic this is, right? So that is it. That's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.